because I refuse to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their guilt rings. Right, the bouncers' guilt rings.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day.
This is COLM McGuigan for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. You were going to attempt to do my accent there, you know. Go, attempt it.
This is COLM McGuigan, proudly sponsored by Sports Direct and Everlast.
That's horrendous. That's like a mix of Brian Peters and my accent. It's because you speak to Brian Peters so much, you've messed it up there. Shocking, Frank.
I thought it was quite good, boy.
Oh, Frank, in New Orleans, bringing big-time boxing back to New Orleans, Louisiana. First off, how's ticket sales went for this one? Has it been a good gate return so far?
Yeah, so far it's been good. You know, it's going to pick up as well the last few days. You know, we didn't have the ultimate amount of time that we would ideally have liked. You know, we would have done this event in, I think, a 6-week turnaround or 5.5 weeks since we signed Regis Prograis. We announced, obviously, at the Canelo fight back in the start of May. But yeah, it's been a success and going to be in for a great night on Saturday night. It's good to come to, you know, new markets for us. Obviously, Regis fought here in the World Boxing Super Series, 4 years ago? Something like that. You know, quite a long time ago. So it's good to do it, and looking forward to a great atmosphere on Saturday.
When this fight was made, it was originally Liam Parrow, which was a great fight in itself. Then he pulls out through injury. There's rumours that Barboza's going to step in. You end up with Zorilla, and not taking anything away from Zorilla. He had a great fight against Barboza, but ultimately, did you want a better opponent? Did you want a bigger name for Regis in this fight?
Look, I think the style with this fight is gonna really gel, and I actually think you look at Zorilla's record. He had a very close fight against Barboza in his only loss. So I think we're in for a great fight. You know, we did try and push for the Barboza fight, that it didn't work out. But I think we're in for a great fight on Saturday. It was unfortunate, the Liam Parrow injury, because, you know, we worked with Liam for a long time and we wanted to deliver him that world title shot. But, you know, he'll be back soon, I'm sure. But focus is Regis Prograis, getting him back out there, and, you know, some massive fights to be made in a 140-pound division.
You're now a major player in the 140-pound division with Matchroom. Well, you personally also, mate. But in terms of what you can bring to the table for Regis, not looking past Zorilla, but what's the type of fight that you want to see Regis Prograis in next? Is it the likes of a Devin Haney, who's a promotional free agent, who's, you know, touted to be working with Matchroom next, potentially might be here on Saturday? What can you tell us about that?
Look, obviously, we'd love to make the Devin Haney fight. It's a massive fight to be made. You know, we had the pleasure of working with Devin for, you know, 3 or so years, and it's tremendous what he's done in the sport and what he's achieved in such a short space of time. I think he hasn't made a decision yet, I don't think, about weight, but I think more likely he goes up to 140. But there's some great fights to be made there, yeah. Look, Regis Prograis against Devin Haney, huge fight. We've obviously got Jack Catterall, tremendous fighter, you know, who looked great in his return a couple of weeks back now. That's a fight that's been spoken about a lot. So there's a lot of big fights to be made in the 140-pound division, a lot of exciting fights. You know, Teofimo with a great win as well on Saturday night. I didn't watch it all, but, you know, it just shows, you know, the skill and the ability Teofimo's got, because a lot of people thought he looked comfortable in that victory on Saturday against Josh Taylor. So look, lots of exciting fights out there to be made, lots of people who are free agents, so, you know, a lot to look forward to. But Regis was a key part of the puzzle for us to get him, to sign him. He was a focus for us, and he's a focus for our business, and you know, we're going to make sure we deliver for him.
I've just spoke to Regis, and I touted some of these fights. He said he'd love the Haney fight, he'd love Teofimo. He says he stops Teofimo, but also I spoke to him about the potential of a Josh Taylor rematch. Is that something that's maybe dead in the water now with the loss? He insisted that that's one he could get himself right up for. Is that the type of fight that you would be willing to work with Top Rank to make next?
Look, possibly. You know, Josh Taylor, he's got built a name for himself. Look, there's the potential Josh Taylor-Jack Catterall rematch in time as well. But ideally, you'd like Jack Catterall to have a belt for that. You know, that's our focus, is to get Jack Catterall a world title opportunity. You know, there's been discussions around Matthias in the past. I don't think, you know, we sort of moved our focus to Prograis. But there's lots of fights to be made there. And, you know, I don't think losing, we've spoken about this a lot, I don't think losing should be defined as your careers, you know. If you can be in entertaining fights and there's a bit of history and a bit of beef and, you know, build up there, that makes up for it. So I think all these guys are willing to fight each other, and there's big fights to be made there.
In the US, a market that you're still getting to grips with, if we can say, you're taking over different cities at different times. What's next on the US market for Matchroom? Obviously, you've got Berlanga next week, but is there more fights in the pipeline to be announced at the moment?
Yeah, look, we've got another fight with Prograis later in the year. Diego Pacheco looking to headline, obviously fights in Mexico first, but looking to headline in LA later in the year with him. We're working to finalise the Jesse Rodriguez against Sonny Edwards fight, the unification, for the sort of November, December time in the US as well. Lots of fights planned. We're working through our whole schedule as things play out. But yeah, lots of exciting opportunities on the horizon. So will be announced, I guess, in the next few weeks, I hope.
A lot of people have been talking about PBC and Showtime with this Garcia-Davis fight, now Spence Crawford. Do you feel that you're still on the same level as them in terms of promoting these big fights and bringing big-time boxing around the US?
Look, they've had a great run, and it's great for the sport of boxing. As you say, Garcia against Haney, Garcia against Tank. Garcia against Tank, that's the one. And Spence against Crawford. Two brilliant fights for the sport. I think they needed to make big fights. They were in a bit of a tough position. They hadn't really been making them. But look, for us as a British business who's come over here and built up over a period of time, we promoted 6 of Canelo's last 7 fights. Canelo's, quite simply, easily put, the biggest star in US boxing, if not global boxing. So we're in a great position. There's always more fights to be made. It's never ending. That's the good thing about this business. There's constant fights to be made, but it's about building stars for the future as well, and that's why the likes of Diego Pacheco, as we say before, we just signed a long-term 3-year extension with him. He excites us, and he's a fighter that we believe can take over the coming years. So look, Showtime, PBC done a great job with those fights, and again, brilliant for the sport of boxing. And they've had a brilliant run, but it's about being consistent over a long period of time, and that's what we'll continue to do.
You mentioned there being involved in 6 of the last 7 of Canelo's fights. Is it likely that you won't be involved in this next fight with the likes of Badu Jack and Charlo being touted as potential opponents?
Yeah, look, we're discussing it as well with Skill Challenge about the Badu Jack fight. We actually met Prince Khalid a few weeks ago, and Eddie was discussing that. I'm speaking to Amir Abdullah later today as well. So there's obviously other fights to be made as well. Belanga's a potential. I know there's maybe the Bivol fight doesn't look as likely now, but that's still one for the future as well. So look, there's massive fights still to be made. Canelo hasn't made a decision yet, or Eddie Reynoso. So we'll see. We'd love to be involved. Of course, we would love to be involved. But at the same time, he's going to do the fights that cement his legacy as well, like he did when he went off for the Caleb Plant fight. I believe they enjoy working with us. I believe we had a great relationship, hence why we've done all of these fights together. But yeah, let's see how things play out. Of course, we'd love to continue working with Canelo Alvarez.
Bivol's one that you mentioned there. What's next for him if it's not the Canelo fight, which looks very unlikely at this point? Is Benavidez a potential?
Maybe. I mean, the truth is, it's hard at 175. There's not a ton of opponents. He's beat a lot of them as well already. We've tried to make fights against, we tried to make the Joshua Buatsi fight. He didn't want to take it at the time for whatever reason. I think he's fighting Dan Aziz now. I think you look at the pipeline, you've obviously got Callum Smith fighting Beterbiev. Dimitri wants to become undisputed champion. That's his focus. So he'll want the winner of that fight. Obviously, we're with Callum Smith. It's a tough fight against Beterbiev, but we believe he's got a very good chance of doing the job against him. But the undisputed fight there is a massive fight. But I think he's going to want to get out in between. It's just picking the right opponent. And like I say, there's not tons of options there in the 175 division, so we have to see. But that's definitely the focus for us, is the undisputed fight at some point soon. That the Smith Beterbiev fight's August, so you're probably looking at sort of November, December, January time for that Bivol fight against the winner.
I spoke to Edgar Berlanga the other day in New York, and we spoke about the potential of a Canelo fight in Yankee Stadium. I've spoke to you about this to you before. How feasible is it that we could see something like that before the end of this year, potentially, or is that too soon?
I think the timings may be different. Look, Edgar Berlanga needs a big win. I think he needs to go in there, and if that's against Jason Quigley, he needs a great performance, and I believe he can show us a great performance. He's looked great in training. I think might be a struggle this year. Now, we've spoken to the Yankees, as I said to you before, a few times. We've got a good relationship with them, done some promo stuff there over the years. The team are big boxing fans as well, so I believe that's something that can happen. But Edgar's got to focus on June 24th against Jason Quigley. Get through that. If he gets through that in stylish fashion, it makes the Canelo fight a lot more realistic sooner rather than later.
Can you give us some dates for August and September, matchroom wise? What can you give us?
Yeah, obviously, look, we're announced up to July 15th. Got a weekend off July 22nd, which is quite nice. For my birthday on July 24th, it's like I planned it. July 29th, obviously looking to do London, Fabio Wardley, Cash against Ammo Williams, a couple of other fights on there as well. August 12th, obviously the date for AJ that we're working towards for the O2.
AJ Whyte?
Possibly, yeah. It's going back and forward. It's a fight we'd love to make. Still discussions ongoing there. August 19th, Birmingham Next Gen. Galauia Fire headlines. Sol Dacre's on there as well. Aaron Bowen on the card. Cyrus Patterson. You know, a stat card. A great Next Gen show as well. And you know, look, Galauia Fire's not far off. He's probably 3 or 4 fights off fighting for a world title. He wants to move quickly. And a great talent. So we've got to keep him active now. August 26th, you've got Usyk against Dubois that weekend. So I think, you know, I'm not sure what we'll do there. Maybe we look at a US show possibly that weekend. September 2nd, possibly a Catterall date. Depends a little bit on what happens with Prograis. You know, got Cordina around that sort of time as well. Like I say, you got a Prograis subject to Saturday night coming back out around that sort of period. September 23rd is obviously a date touted for a potential Abu Dhabi show with Eubank Ben. Now we've got a busy schedule. We're looking at potentially the whole Wood Warrington situation, you know, subject to Komatov. Obviously got Taylor Cameron. So many big fights to be made for the back end of this year, and that's what we're working through with DAZN now to build out that schedule and get a plan in place.
You said Eubank Ben, September 23rd, Abu Dhabi. How close is that to being made? You're in a very privileged position in these talks, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's ongoing. It's never made until it's made, unfortunately. That's the joys of boxing. You can feel like you're getting so close. It's a focus for us to try and deliver that. But let's see, you know, over the next couple of weeks, I think, or week or so, that one will play out and we'll see where we fall. But it's definitely a focus for us to try and deliver that for that date.
We've seen Fraser Clark being announced as the headline in an 8-rounder. What did you make of that from Boxer?
It's very strange. The whole thing's very strange. You know, you say he needs a 10-round fight to gain experience. I don't have a problem with Marius Wack, by the way. You know, the one thing with Fraser Clark, I feel bad for Fraser Clark. You know, I don't think he's been dealt with the right way. Fraser Clark's a tremendous fighter, and he's fought the best in what, especially World Series of boxing, which is more like professional boxing. You know, what's he been doing? 10, 12 years, something like that, at the highest level, really, against some of the best names out there. So he needs to be moved at the right sort of pace. Again, Wack, don't have a problem with, but 8 rounds headlining on Sky. I mean, what are you doing? I mean, headlining an 8-rounder on Sky Sports. Good luck to them. If that's the business they're in, good luck.
Would you have liked to see them pull that show completely? If you were in their position, if you were in Ben Shalom's position, would you have pulled that show completely?
I don't. Look, fair play keeping the show, because you always want to deliver opportunities for fighters. And at the end of the day, they're the ones working hard in the gym. So this isn't like in any way against the sort of show. Look, we've always been in situations where it hasn't gone completely to plan. But you'd think really on a Sky show, you'd want more than an 8-rounder headlining the card. So look, you can't take anything away from delivering fighters opportunities, because they're the ones who work hardest. They deserve it. They're in the gym training hard. But I think they need to look at what they're doing. I thought the whole idea was that Fraser, regardless of whether it was main event chief support, he was fighting a 10-rounder. I thought that was the whole thing of why they pulled him out the purse bid, because he needed a 10-round fight for experience. So why is he fighting an 8-rounder?
So do you believe that they have intentionally pulled him out of that purse bid for no reason other than they don't want him to fight Fabio Wardley?
Not they don't want him to fight Fabio Wardley. It's nothing to do with that. They don't want the chance of him fighting on DAZN.
Why do you think that is?
Because they've pumped a load of money in and now haven't got the money to back a purse bid. Is the reality. It's part and part. Look, you can't... like I say, I've said a few times, just come out and say we don't want him to fight on DAZN. At least people will go, fair play. They might go, you're morons, but fair play. Like, this is a hard sport. Boxers deserve to make... Like, Fabio Wardley would have taken that fight a year ago, I'm sure. Fraser Clark would have taken that fight a year ago. It's not Fraser Clark. Fraser Clark is, like I say, he's boxed at the top level against the top fighters. Yes, experience of rounds, etc. But if it was him making a decision, yes, he would have taken that fight if it was ordered a year ago. You know, rightly or wrongly. He's been pulled out on the basis that they do not want him to fight on another platform because they've put money into him, invested money into him, and they just don't want him to. that's the way things go. You invest much, like, look at Callum Smith, right? Callum Smith, we've invested in the final eliminator, etc., etc. We lost the purse bid, fair play, and so he fights on another platform. But that's what you do for your fighters. You invest, and you do for the best of them. And Fraser Clark would have got the ultimate payday, but Boxer couldn't afford it. So, you know, I don't think... But they handled it terribly, and when you handle it terribly, you should have just come out afterwards and gone, all right, yeah, basically we didn't want him to fight on any other platform. That is the most simple way of explaining it. It isn't about Fraser Clark, Fabio Wardley. It's nothing to do with it.
Frank Smith on smoke. Frank, I want to move on to AJ Whyte. How close is that fight to being made? Because obviously we're edging closer to the 12th. Will that be announced within the next couple of weeks?
It needs to, like, look, we need to move it. Whatever we're doing with AJ for August 12th, it needs to move very quickly. There's still work to be done. I'm not, like, I can't sit here and say, yes, it's done. It's a fight everyone's very interested in trying to make happen. But still work to be done. There's still detail to go through. And yeah, not signed or delivered just yet. But it's a fight we're all focused on trying to make.
If it is Dillian Whyte, where does it land? Is that still a stadium fight?
I think it can be, for sure. I think it's a massive fight. I think, you know, in that fight, you've got two of the biggest names in British boxing current day, and two of the biggest heavyweights. Like, when you look at, if you look at the top 5 or 6 heavyweights, especially from an exposure perspective, you've probably got AJ, Whyte, Wilder, Fury, Usyk. Probably top 5 or 6. You know, in terms of the fights they've all been in. Like, don't get me wrong, there's other, obviously Joyce, Dubois, etc. So I'm not taking anything away from them, but they're, like, profile-wise the biggest. So look, I think it's a massive fight. But yeah, still, the focus always was, we booked the O2 a while back for the August 12th date. It was that. We're looking at options now, so let's see.
If not Dillian Whyte, who else is in the reckoning for this fight?
We're working through a few things now. We're going back and forward on a few discussions around that. Again, it's getting the right type of opponent as well. Look, with the focus as well of a December date against Deontay Wilder, which is a fight AJ wants and he's calling for. He wants the Wilder fight, and I'm very confident that that will be delivered in Saudi. So we're just working through the names now. Again, it's not an extensive list of heavyweight opponents, especially he's boxed a lot of them as well, and a lot of them are busy.
Eddie said to me on an interview probably about a month ago now that if the Deontay Wilder fight goes ahead, he will not fight Dillian Whyte in August. Is that still the position?
I think there's still discussion around what's right, what. But look, we're focused firstly August discussion, and at the same time I was with Skill Challenge on Saturday in London discussing the Wilder and the December plans. I'm speaking to Amir Abdullah later today as well. So, you know, there's lots of conversations still ongoing, lots of moving parts as part of it all. But, you know, I feel like we'll get somewhere very soon in the next week.
Do you still feel that December date does go ahead with Wilder, and do you think that Fury Usyk can still land on the same night? I
think Wilder against AJ will go ahead, yeah, in December. I think regardless of what happens with Fury against Usyk, you know, I think that's I said it the other day, I think Wilder against AJ is commercially a bigger fight than Fury against Usyk, regardless of belts. It's just the truth, I think, especially from a global appeal. I think that is the focus for us. He's delivering AJ that fight against Deontay Wilder. It's what we'll plan to do, and let Fury and those, you know, it changes every day what Fury's doing. So sort of let them carry on with what they're doing. It's not our business.
I've spoke to you quite a bit on these US trips about potential US signings. I spoke to you about Ryan Garcia. I'll take an assist if he ever does sign with Matchroom on that one. Who are you speaking to at the moment? Who would you like to sign? I know the doors are always open at Matchroom USA. Who's on the horizon to be announced?
Well, I mean, look, you only have to look at the next 2 weeks of shows. Regis Prograis we signed recently, who's a tremendous fighter that we're very excited by. Edgar Berlanga the following week signed a new extension with Diego Pacheco, as I say, a fighter we believe in for the long term. Austin Williams is a fighter we believe in as well. Jesse Rodriguez, obviously, with the big Sonny Edwards fight towards the end of the year. Signed Andy Cruz, you know, one of the best, I think the best amateur fighters in recent times. Can't wait to get started with him on July 15th. Alicia Baumgarten, the headline. She's built a massive profile for herself and really looked great. You know, look, we are always looking at new fighters. You know, there's a balance between how many fighters you can sign. I've just listed out there all the extensions and new signings we've done over the past 2 months. You know, so, but there's lots of big names out there, and if a big name comes up and they're a free agent, we're always up for it. We're always looking to do something. So, you know, I believe now what we've built over this time is that we're in that list of the 2 or 3 people you go to with, you know, you got PBC, you got Top Rank and us, I think are the key ones.
So is there nothing on the immediate horizon for Matchroom USA in terms of a new signing?
Not right now, but lots of opportunity, lots of potential discussions. As I say, we'd love to have Devin Haney back. He's a free agent now. Potential for the Prograis fight would be great. You know, so many fights out there, so many great fighters. So, you know, let's see. We're always open for new fighters.
Will Devin be in town on Saturday night? I've heard that rumoured that he'll be here to have a discussion with Matchroom about potentially signing.
Possibly, we'd love to have him here. You know, like I say, we get on very well with Devin. Had a great relationship for many years. So it'd be great to have him here. So let's see. Hopefully he does.
Triple G, Billy Joe Saunders, a fight that's been talked about. Is there any movement on that?
No, I've just messaged Triple G's team because we're here in New York. I'm going to try and see if we can go out and see him. You know, look, he obviously vacated his belts. He had mandatories put on him, which didn't make any sense for Gennady Golovkin. Is the truth. He's a big enough name now without the belts, and there's big enough fights out there. I think he's 40 years old now, maybe 41. He needs to make a decision as to what he wants to do. I think he's still got a lot to give the sport. You know, he's been a tremendous fighter for many years, and I think there's still opportunities out there for him. You know, I think it would be great to do a fight in Kazakhstan with Gennady Golovkin. But let's see. You know, I'd love to have those discussions. Billy Joe, I think, it was DMing Edgar Berlanga as well, wasn't he? Yeah. So we'll see. I'm sure Billy Joe. I'm not sure when he's looking to come back, but I'm sure we'll have discussions as and when that plays out.
Well, Frank, thank you very much for your time. We'll catch up again. I'll not get you to do any impressions today. You don't seem as if you're in the mood after 22 minutes of smoke being blown at Boxer there, so I appreciate your time, mate.
No, not me. But I gave you an Irish impression. That was
fair.
Bad enough, wasn't it? Yeah, so there you go.
Thanks, Frank.
Because I refuse to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their guilt rings. Right, the bouncer's guilt ring.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day,